We're the quorum. All right, we'll call the meeting to order because we do have quorum. I don't have any minutes to approve for you tonight, but I feel like next month we're going to be like on fire. Do that. This is an opportunity in the meeting for public comment. Do we have any members of the public who would like to comment? No members of the public to comment. So we will move right on to updates from city staff.
We have quite a few updates this week. So starting with the Ford Lightning multi-departmental use electric vehicle that was approved on Wednesday night at the admin meeting. Very exciting, last Wednesday. The fleet order bank has already been closed for 2025, and the 2026 won't open until around September 25th. So we'll have an update then, and then we can move forward there. The CPACE letter of support from this body was sent to the commission last Wednesday on the 3rd and passed along to mayor and commissioners. And then as of Monday, the CPACE resolution has been approved. Very exciting. Great job, guys. Also, I forgot to mention this at the last meeting. I am now a board member for Recycle Montana, which is pretty huge. Our next meeting is October 8th. Very exciting. As far as the glass crusher goes, that needs to go out to bid. So we are about to start writing that RFP now with the specs locked down so we can get the one that we would like. What else? For curbside recycling, that RFP closed on Friday, and so next week we'll review submissions. I think that's all we have. Yeah. Do you guys have any questions for me or Leah?
Yeah, question. The recycling group that you've become part of, what is that about? How's that? Who's it connected with?
So honestly, I don't know a whole lot about it. It's run by Candy Zion, and they work all over Montana. And so it's a composition group. We're the only municipality represented on it at the moment.
Wow.
But they host events. Like right now they have the, what's the Trash Dash. Thank you. Trash Dash is going on. Registration is open for that. But they also hold like paint exchanges, like our latex paint exchange, which is coming up starting next Wednesday. It runs through October 1st. And that's at the transfer station. But they do like household hazardous waste events, and they have grants for school recycling and also school compost and gardening and things like that. It's actually really cool. That's Recycle Montana.
So it sounds like it's oriented toward raising awareness and getting them while they're young.
Exactly. And it's a lot of public outreach. And so depending on where you're at, like I'll be doing tabling events here when there are bigger, broader events happening in our community. So they try to pick somebody from just about every major city to be on the board.
It's a really collaborative group, so that to try to synchronize the messaging throughout Montana, so that you don't have people getting different information in different areas. And then it's also a really awesome bank for education outreach material. So Emily got a really wonderful education truck from them that had a giant binder in it that's separated by age groups.
Yeah, age group and curriculum.
Yeah.
And it's just filled with really amazing materials. Like it has little bales of like shredded paper and a little tiny bale. Like when I say tiny, I mean they're this big. Little tiny bales of like crushed aluminum, and it has like it has a recycled t-shirt in it and a book that's made from recycled plastic, and which weighs about a ton. It's a really good read, actually. It's really, really valuable. So we use them in our outreach as well.
Some more questions. Are we, should we maybe coordinate with the schools at all? Or make this sort of that way? What kind of, I guess the broader question is saying the same question. Who else in the community here can we connect with? And the even broader question, what might we be able to do to help? And I know you're new at it, so it's something to think about maybe rather than immediately we have these answers, let's go do this, but rather be thinking about who do we have coalition with? What do we do to help make your life more successful?
Well, I already have connections with Helena Public Schools, and so I'm in contact with them as far as doing outreach events at the schools during assemblies and things like that. Helena Recycling does have recycling in the schools, but it's fairly limited as far as outreach. But as far as like this body helping, I can't answer that just yet.
Right, so taking time to think about it.
I feel like the more I dig into
Sure,
it,
that's not
especially
really our role, because our role is very narrow, like
Yeah.
the scope of our role is very narrowed as to
That's send it to commission first, right?
being,
We can still recommend that if we find out that it's great and can lead to other things, we can recommend things from there, right?
yes,
Yeah.
sure. But I think that is an advisory board.
Well, and I want to say that you guys were able to do that last year through your recommendation for public outreach and expansions of public outreach and education. I think was one of your guys' recommendations from last year. And I think that would
We could put that as certainly as a recommendation to increase this department's role in participating in schools or something like that. I mean, I don't, from my observation of the schools, the students are reason for recycling. And there's not someone with the district that's like something that there is a lot of interest in, although each school has a green club, and those green clubs are typically searching for something to do. So there is possibility with some connection and outreach that you could get the students excited about something like that, or I shall say a select group of the students excited about something like that. So there's certainly some possibilities there.
So, coattail on that. There last year, one of the Green Club students, a really active Green Club student, got internship or something like that from the EPA,
oh, cool.
right? And he identified a big grant that would have made Helena Middle School more considerably environmentally lower impact carbon and more efficient, lower cost. So it's just one student, one smart high school student who's now starting second year of college. He identified that these things that were available to us.
Yeah, there's definitely some talented students. That there is an AP environmental science class at each high school. There's a group of students at each school that are approaching green clubs at each school, and again, they're typically searching for stuff to do. So I think there's probably some possibility there because there's a lot of that. Is there food waste already composted? I don't know.
At the schools?
Yeah, no.
there was a pilot project at some of the elementary schools that I think Better Roots was at some of the elementary schools that Better Roots was doing.
Yeah, that was a couple of years ago.
But with the buyout of Tri-County by Republic, from what we've been able to find out, it's like Better Roots did.
Tell by the way.
Feels like this is a cool opener. And then I know Jeremy Drake does Zero Waste in Missoula has expanded their school program to the surrounding county and schools out beyond Missoula into like neighboring cities. So if this worked good, it'd be cool to like track that, see if it works, and then if there's movement, maybe progress to bringing that out this way
Yeah,
at some point. because they are now implementing it in all of the schools, and they have fifth graders all have to go to like landfill, and they have like a whole kind of week long thing that they do as like a, well, I guess one of those one Montessori schools, kind of like that, of like
Yeah,
the kids go outside.
experiential learning.
Yeah, yeah.
Go out and put your nose
It's
like-
possible, it'd be possible to do in the schools here, everything is reasonably centralized, you've got cafeterias at each school, you've got, trash collection. And I think the students are certainly amenable to it, they just don't, unless it's something they're focused on, it's not something they do for sure.
Actually, it's kind of relevant to Tom, because one of the big changes, it's right, the big change from Tom is that the centralized kitchen at Capitol High, which is like the size of this, two of this, it's provides food for the entire district, 17 schools, right? And they have no double doors. It's all single door, and they have these external storage units and stuff. The new build is going to have a much more spacious central kitchen and be at the new Helen. And I wonder if that's part of the reason why Better Roots, kind of pulled up. It's just really hard with the logistics of just getting the food to the kids.
Oh, well, Better Roots was owned by Tri-County.
So it's not
So,
um,
yeah, so since Tri-County Disposal sold to Republic Services, it was part of the package deal. And so Republic Services is choosing not to, from what we've been able to find, is choosing not to move forward.
Leave it to us.
Yeah, we do. It says Better Roots on the thing, but that doesn't make sense. Why?
I was about to say, are they still getting picked up?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's something.
I'm excited. I think that's
So I've got a quick question about I don't recall what the curbside recycling effort or program was
Oh.
about.
So Helena Recycling is our current provider for curbside recycling. And their contract is up at the end of the year, and they've been extended as many times as they could be. And so we had to put out an RFP to have, in order to establish a new contract starting on January 1. So that just closed last week.
Are they the only one that offers curbside?
In town,
Yeah.
Did you get more than one bid?
well, we can't really speak to that at the moment. Once we get there, I'll keep you guys up to date. But currently they're the only, they work in conjunction with the city, so.
So that Grizzly Disposal did recycling. Are they no longer around? I thought they were out of Helena.
Grizzly is out of Missoula.
So you see the
Oh, but they have to haul to Helena because
Yeah.
the landfill.
Yeah.
That's fine.
or they used to.
Oh,
Yeah,
again.
they used to.
Except now Republic bought, so they had to haul here because Republic bought the landfill over in Missoula. So now that Republic has bought Valley View landfill, which is a landfill, they are barred from that one now as well. So, isn't it a great thing? So,
How Montana?
so we will see how that transpires.
Well, it all goes to the Public Service Commission, so I doubt it will transpire.
They,
Off the record and not on camera.
the PSC approved Republic's purchase of Valley View landfill, and so, they can decide Valley, so Republic can decide who they want to let in there or not, so. From what we've heard, as of the purchase date, Grizzly is no longer allowed to use that.
So the solid waste master plan
We're
still working.
we're still okay on it, and that's Emily's agenda item.
Yeah, it's gonna be our agenda item here because we talked about it last month. So, but before we get to that, was there any more questions, updates? So before we get to that, we need a vice chair for this body because our last one resigned, and we did not hold elections in January. But basically, we were lucky just to scrape like 5 bodies together for any month between then and now. This is the most people have been here in like 4 years. So it's fairly impressive. So we need a vice chair, and I can bring silly the descriptions of the positions. You call it up on the computer real quick and sell it.
They're gonna say like a silly hat that the person has to wear if they're
It's-
silly.
yeah, no, this is actually the officer that you want to be, because the vice chair doesn't do anything except preside over the meetings if the chair isn't there. That's their sole responsibility essentially.
No, the minutes are the secretary.
Can I ask a dumb question while we wait for Leah to come back?
Yeah.
Can we do a quick round of everyone's names again?
Yeah, we can
With that,
go around with the names again. So, Jathan,
Nathan,
Peter,
Bob,
Tyler,
Dave. There'll be a test.
after the third like face to face conversation, I'll get it. I'm that names for a minute.
I'm gonna work on
So the board vice chair. So we'll start off with the board chair since it goes in with the vice chair. Board chair. The chair presides over all meetings of the board. The chair signs documents and communications on behalf of the board, decides all points of procedure unless overruled by a majority vote of the board, and performs other duties described in these bylaws. The vice chair. In the absence of the chair, the vice chair shall serve as chair and have such responsibility and authority as provided in section 5 of this article. The vice chair shall perform other duties delegated by the chair. That's pretty much most of it. Section 5 is just about meetings. And so it's just how do you guys hold your meetings? In fact, they have to be open meetings.
and then there's the secretary.
Yes.
In your chair, your secretary, correct? Okay.
So we don't currently have a vice chair, and then just I'm putting this on y'all's calendar. In January, this body will need to have a round of elections, during which we'll be searching for a new chair for this body because I'm attending school every day, so and I have two classes I'm teaching for the first time
What are you teaching?
this year: earth science and biology. I mean, I've taught biology a long time at the university level, and I taught earth science for most of the year at the high school level. But it's a new school for me, so everybody does things just a little bit different.
Yeah.
And so
I'm excited about.
having two preps is it's in 123 students right now. I have 123 names that I've got like 98% of, except for that person. No, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. But that would be in January. We would have that. But right now, we do need a vice chair. I think just to have one on the book. So I'm soliciting volunteers for the role of vice chair, which is again really the best role that there is because now that I'm teaching, it's almost guaranteed that I'm not going anywhere for the next.
If no one else really wants
So
to do
true.
it, I don't mind being as well.
It does not matter.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Be there. Yeah.
You can rock, paper,
Vice chair.
My first meeting was when we held elections last time in court.
Right.
My first meeting we held elections, and I was very intimidating.
Right.
But you have seniority though, so
Okay.
you could probably be vice chair.
So what I will suggest to you, your opportunity is coming. It's coming in January.
All the positions are gonna open again.
Yes, all positions open in January. And typically how it's happened in the past in this body is that we've solicited nominations from people, and so everyone just sits quietly until someone decides, okay, I can do it, and then we elect that person. Is basically how it works. But I think January would be a great time for some turnover in those positions.
I won't be here.
So well, the good news is we have enough people on the board now that it's likely, since I see that there are 7 of us here right now, it's likely we'll have a quorum in January and it won't matter. We'll be good. good to
We can
go.
put motion on the if you're not here.
Uh-oh.
But we can definitely state you in a position, make a motion and,
To move,
so yeah, we do need to move.
so I so move. You're in.
So,
Nice start.
well, let's make a formal,
Yeah,
I'll second.
formal motion. Neil.
Peter Duffy.
Okay, I move that Peter Dudley be elected or be nominated as our vice chair.
Do you promise to uphold our values? Do as we wish. Let's say.
Question, need a second still. Any objections?
We got a second.
I'll
so that, we got a second. Discussion? All right, all in favor?
Yeah.
Aye. Opposed? All right, there it is. We're good until. Yeah, thank you all very much for that. We'll determine, I mean, if ever absent in January. Possible. So the plan of being here so we can strong arm you to.
You can video it.
Yeah, no, not if I'm in America.
That's true. No.
America
no.
might be.
I'm figuring out as far away.
I never think gonna be
So that was our main, well, one of our main agenda items. The other item, we talked last month a little bit about the solid waste master plan. I did sit and I don't even remember the conditions or the reasons, but sometime we were doing recommendations last year and I read the whole solid waste master plan. It's not that long. It's actually worth the time to read. It's well written. Surprisingly, maybe unsurprising, it's very logical in what it suggests, the kind of thought process they went through. A lot of it has to do with the transfer station and changes to the transfer station to make the whole process work better. But there isn't, or we have not been informed of like how that's going to be implemented, I suppose. So I think that was what we kind of talked about last month, and we decided to table it until this month so that you guys could give us a little bit more information on that.
So as far as the integrated solid waste master plan goes, as you said, it's not a massive document, but it has a ton of moving parts. Unfortunately, I did not have the time to complete the full scale this last time. And so moving forward, starting at the next meeting, I'm going to have chunk updates for you guys because it involves sitting down with many different people and going through where we are at, if we have started, what our progress is with all these different micro projects, I guess you could call them, all adding up to one big thing. So right now, like one thing I can tell you is out at the landfill, there's going to be a convenience site out front, and that RFP has gone out already. And so there was already a team that went out to look at the site. That happened last week. And so that'll be a part of their proposal, I suppose you could say. But yeah, as I have that information compiled, I'll be reporting it back to you. So next meeting, which is October, when would that be? October 8th.
8th.
8th or 9th.
Ninth.
But I'll have an update for you guys at that point.
That drop off site, it talks, so that's the first piece in the larger piece of the recommendations. One of the recommendations in there was for there to be satellite drop off sites similar to our drop off recycling locations, where there were smaller convenient sites that people can go to instead of having to come to the transfer station to dispose of their waste. So the first one that was recommended was actually out of the landfill. There is, I think, potentially 2 more that were identified in the plan. At the very least, 1 more that was identified in the plan as advantageous. That's the first part. And then when Emily was talking about some of the micro projects, one of those projects is the one that we were already working on, which is the entrance to the transfer station with the recycling drop-off area. Over there in that kind of weird little corner that, of Carroll College is there.
It's like a part of that parking lot.
They have given us that piece because it had an entrance on it that they found out was illegal. Anyway, so they couldn't use it anyway, and so by moving some of the recycling out there, well, not moving, but adding additional recycling options out there. So that was another piece of it, and a lot of it's just getting some of that pressure off of the transfer station itself to make it easier for people to come in and out of, and then that way hopefully we get more people moving through it in an easier fashion. And then another project that was identified and is being worked on this fiscal year is designing the seawalls.
That's currently in our engineering department, and that's in motion already. But yeah, it's a lot of lots of moving parts going on right now.
And Jason, from reading the Integrated Solid Waste Master Plan, you'll know this, but for those of you that haven't read it yet, those seawalls are intended to allow for faster movement of some of the green waste and the composting materials. One of the issues that we hear about a lot is about smell from the transfer station. That's actually a lot of it's from the grass clippings.
This weekend was nice little breeze.
Yep, starting to so we do masses there. It's wet, and so it actually starts its composting process.
Is there an alcoholic beverage that can be made from this?
It tastes like it smells. If it tastes like it smells, you don't want it.
Oh, right.
But and then also the ability for us to get the wood shipping and stuff like that out of there more cyclically, so that it opens up even more of that space. But yeah, that was one of the big things that we heard. And so just ease of use, and then it'll make it easier for folks dropping off their grass, their green waste. And then when Emily was talking about micro projects, one of the recommendations is for the city to expand into curbside green waste collection pickup. Until we have the Z walls, it's not possible to expand into that because we don't have the room and the capacity at the current transfer station. Where if we did have the Z walls, we would have the capacity and room to expand into something.
Right. Question two, just a bit of history there. Isn't that where was it 1991 spill occurred, a train wreck? It's right down along where the transfer station is and all the concrete tubing, piping kind of stuff. I think that's the area where there's a big mess. I think that's where.
It's so hard with all the trains that topple over these days. Which one was it?
Well, this is 1991. It's a while back. It was quite the event. Yeah, we had homes. Electricity was on for a while.
Oh, that one occurred in like -40 degrees
Yes,
weather,
yes.
and like the brakes froze, and like it came screaming down off McDonald Path, and then the train. Was it 91 or was it before that?
That's what I'm on the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big explosion. 80s.
I don't know.
I'm not good with
My neighbor. Rick,
So I think that perhaps puts a limit on what they can and can't do with that space.
The other thing that puts a limit on what we can and can't do with that space is that there's actually a portion of the land of the transfer station that is actually on top of the old landfill.
Whoa.
Yep. They were really good at defining their margins back in the day. And so, and there's also a portion of the property of the transfer station that we don't own. We actually lease that from the NSF. And so, yeah, so there's all sorts of interesting things with that site, but those are some of the things that Emily will probably touch base on dive a lot deeper into it. But there's a clear path in the Integrated Solid Waste Master Plan, but there's a lot of small things that have to be done first until we can actually build on the greater property.
And without the city having to buy our own whatever bag steel other lanes.
Does some of those wastewater treatment plant, do they do biosolids?
Yes.
Do you guys do that with is that an integrated waste plan with like composting and the yard waste to do a mixture like Billings is doing with theirs?
Yep, so during the summer, we actually land apply the biosolids. And then in the winter, we use a filter press. We press it and we take it out to the Lewis and Clark County landfill where the composting operation is.
Okay.
We mix that with the green waste I should say generally during the summer we land apply. It just depends on weather and soil moisture and things like that. But then, it's taken out to Lewis and Clark County landfill. Jackie Pearson is in charge of that, and she has it down to her science of exactly what ratio of wood chips, grass clippings, and biosolids that need to go in together. The biosolids are good because they add a good amount of nutrients, but also moisture to our compost, which is necessary.
And our water has pretty much no microplastics at all. Yeah.
Well-
less than however many parts per trillion is the cutoff, right?
Yeah, so our drinking water doesn't have both of our drinking water sources returned with no detectable PFAS in it. And so any PFAS that is in that wastewater would be generated through public or commercial entities. And we haven't identified any that have a strong indication that they should, except I strongly suspect car washes. But
Interesting.
they use a lot of chemicals that have proprietary blends, and
The water from Pete, which sounds like microplastics.
so until we would need something to be passed at the federal level to require that any chemicals containing PFAS be identified before we can fully. Sorry, that's.
No, great, good question.
I actually did read it, but it took me 3 times because I fell asleep each time.
It's not that bad. I don't remember reading. I remember mostly the highlights and the moving parts. If there was moving parts in there. I know when they surveyed, there still is, and there continues to be a lot of interest in expanding curbside recycling opportunities, and so I think that's one area I think for our recommendations that is a possibility, particularly looking at commodities that have. I would start with commodities that have some value to them. So if there's a net value for that commodity, I think that there would be something to gain because it could potentially be worth the city's time, because you could collect it, you could pay for what it would cost to collect it by collecting it, and then you get the additional benefit of diverting it from the landfill. So you would have steel cans and aluminum. I mean, those are the two that are probably a win-win every time. And I would imagine there's a fair amount out there that is not recycled, that if people had the choice to do it easily, that they might do it. But I don't really know. I mean, pilot program
Well,
to see.
to touch on that, so the pilot program for how an additional pickup option would work is likely the green waste.
The green
We went to the commission a few months ago and we asked them for direction on if they would like us to look into the cost of implementing a green waste program, because that was the one that was identified. It was identified in the strategic plan for waste reduction, which Jeremy Drake, the zero waste for it, and as the stepping stone for diversion, and then it was also the first thing that was identified in the in the integrated solid waste master plan of, because we already have almost have the facility to be able to implement that. It would just be the Z walls and getting the cans rolled out and then figuring out a collection system and how to implement it. So the commission came back and said, yes, we want you guys to explore the green waste. So right now we have a solid waste rate study going on, and that is built in as a component to it, to the cost for us to implement green waste service, and then also the cost for us to implement recycling services.
I have a couple questions. One, who's doing the waste study? And is that started or is it starting soon / when? I think it will be done.
Which one?
The solid waste study that you just said?
Oh, the integrated solid waste master plan?
The rate study.
Oh, rate study. I
Rate
thought you said
study.
waste study. I was like,
Yeah. Well, there was a waste study that was done as part of the strategic plan for waste reduction.
okay.
They used a model that they had done in Missoula. And so for that, they went to our transfer station and observed it for, I would say, like a week or so, and they from what they were able to figure out, it seemed like our waste was similar to Missoula's in composition. So they were able to just use the Missoula model, which was handy. You're not reinventing the wheel. And so
That kind of ties in. I'm wondering if there's cost recovery on some of these. If the aluminum and steel, I know fiber used to be. I don't know fiber in a big old cardboard. Not so much anymore.
no, the commodities that we actually, and Emily can speak more to this than I can, that have a market value are aluminum cans, steel, scrap metal.
Plastic sometimes.
Yeah, we right now we pay $50 a ton for cardboard, for them to take cardboard, and then $140 for them to take plastics.
That one varies monthly. I think right now we're sitting at 140, but like right when I started, it was like 50, right in around $50 or $60. So that one varies the most. Cardboard tends to stay around 50, but then our return on aluminum, it's $800 a ton. And our steel and tin is somewhere, I want to say around 70 at the moment.
Got it. Well, I mean, right now, some of us are paying or taking our time out to go out and recycle, paying for recycle. So some citizens are paying that money already, kind of like an insurance. Say, okay, so some people are being paid out from an insurance pool. We're paying into a recycling. So you've got something started there, and then you've got these things that have value associated with them. So I don't have any brilliant ideas. I'll play around with this in my head a bit, but it strikes me that there might be a model out there, maybe that's what you're talking about, a Zulu model, where you're both getting cost recovery for the city and maybe providing incentives to the people in the community who recycle. And I don't know if that means take 10 cents off your utility bill because you brought in 10 pounds of plastics or something like that. But if there was some way that you could think that through, if somebody already has a model like that, probably a larger city, I guess, where there's more consistent, large enough samples so there's consistent.
I know that there was a glass recovery system that I can't remember what their incentive was, whether it was monetary or not. But in Missoula, they had glass.
There's one guy that runs it.
You're talking about the Bayer bottle program?
I think so. Is the guy that
Yeah.
goes in and out of struggling financially, and like the town always lifts him up, and
Yeah.
so they're trying to help. But like, yeah,
Variability problems.
yeah. I think there's a couple things we could think about in that regard later on, maybe. But I know there's some landfills in Montana that they have the facility that you can drop off, and they do a lot of like bulky clothes separation, and it's not like a financial thing; it's an apps things that they partner with an org. Like YWCA or something, and they take that as really chunky material that takes up space in the landfill. But I think you have to have like a drop off station and like an indoor kind of separation drive in and everything set up type of thing.
And textiles were accepted at the transfer station years ago. And it just,
We lost,
Like so much goodwill. You know,
we lost our outlet when Helena Industries closed. 'Cause Helena Industries would take it, and they also had, you know, because of what they accepted, they also had a way to get that to recycling facilities, or like a contract to get them to recycling facilities, I believe is how it was. And when Helena Industries ended, so did our textile program, because we just couldn't find an outlet for it.
did you say the last meeting? Does Helena have a glass crusher?
We're getting one.
Getting one.
We
Okay.
got approval from the commission for this fiscal year to purchase a crusher.
What's the plan with that after getting it? Is there a plan already? Is it in the integrated waste thing?
Yeah, so I want to say that it actually is. And I don't know if the glass crusher itself is specifically identified in the integrated solid waste master plan, but I think they touched on it briefly in the strategic plan for waste reduction. That, you know, we were paying $15,000, at least $15,000 a year, 15 to 30, send our glass down to Utah to Momentum, and to be made into fiberglass. And with the purchase of this glass crusher that Emily's working at, we would then be able to crush the glass and send it to Ash Grove Cement Plant over in Montana City, where they love it because it's pure form silica, but they can't currently take ours because of the prevalence of plastic flow regulators. They're the perfect size to plug up the feed tubes for their kiln, and if the feed tubes plug up, it's $100,000 an hour.
The reason why we're checking it out just to be kind of used as a product when we could be utilizing it as a resource to sell out, because there's a good case in Louisiana with College Gal and her friends that started the whole glass crushing thing, and they just use it to have sand for the rehabilitation of the coast coming in. But they've also gotten it to where beer bottles, you can then get like the solid form of amber and sell that. And so they do that with a lot of their pure forms and can run for, and they started with just like a hand crusher. So I mean, there's a lot of potential here. If there's like an actual one going through with.
so there definitely is potential in researching glass crushers. I talked to a lot of other municipalities and other privatized organizations that have the glass crusher that we are after. And like a lot of them sell to like, you know, road construction companies, a lot of for road mix, a lot of them sell to art studios and things like that. Also like car shops, body shops, stuff like that for sandblasting. They do that. And I think eventually, as we are able to grow our glass recycling program, we would be able to do that. This is us getting our foot in the door, seeing how much we take in, how much we can process, what the staffing looks like. So we're starting off very small, just with Ash Grove, to get our baseline, and then we plan.
Are we selling it to them or giving it to them?
Give it. By us giving it to them, it saves us the cost that we were paying for Momentum to take it for it. So
Like by a lot.
by a lot.
By a lot. And
Carbon
I
footprint.
was saying,
yeah, also for every ton that we give to them, that's 2 tons that they don't have to mine. And that's so significant in our community. So, I mean, what did we say? It was negative. Oh, what was it?
It'll come to you if you
It
don't.
will, it'll come to me at 2 a.m. And at which time I will email home.
So your rate study for your clippings, when is that gonna be?
Then hopefully before the end of October, it should actually be, we're in the final pieces of it right now of them trying to, you know, figure out the wonderful woven web of our finances because of the integrated nature of our solid waste. And so it took them a little bit longer than they thought it was going to be able to sort all of those pieces out.
Where do you see that directing you all as far as implementing some kind of program?
So I don't know yet. We haven't got to see any numbers as far as what the cost of implementing a green waste program would be, and then subsequently a curbside recycling program would be. That's part of the reason why we are renewing, or we're going back out with the RFP for curbside recycling with the private entities, is because we have no idea what that would look like for the city to take on, if the commission even wants us to take that on. The green waste, we have direction from the commission that they would like us to explore that option. And so that's what we're doing. Once we find out how much it's gonna be, a lot of times that's the deciding factor.
So it's a green waste, just the program would be the city then recycling green waste rather than it ending up in a landfill.
So it would be us picking it up at this folks in the city's curbs. It would be a 9 month out of the year, 8 or 9 month out of the year program that would start in the spring and end in the fall. And then we take the green waste just like we would from the transfer station. Yep. It's just us picking it up at the residence instead of them having to bring it in, which in turn makes it so that more people, we could potentially be picking up more of it and remove that waste.
They'll also help our garbage collection as well, because right now a lot of our operators deal with people shoving branches and grass clippings in their garbage cans.
Not me.
It's
My neighbors.
it's definitely a pretty big problem. So this would also solve that, and it would help us up our compost operation.
Land waste diversion.
It seems like future recommendations that could be built off of that for other forms of recycling that are at least the ones that are easy pickings that I know, just based on what I can see the magpies dragging out of my trash cans that are overflowing on when I walk the dog on those collection mornings. There's a fair amount of aluminum and steel that currently is not being recycled. Well, it's just not convenient. So I mean, I don't get it, but I get it at the same time. So I think there's some opportunity there. Any other questions?
I'm just gonna, again, follow your lead here. One of the things I was kind of asking about the cost recovery is whether there are ways to provide even small incentives. Because sometimes the teeniest little incentive is enough to get people to at least get started on things like that, or sporadically do something like that. And I don't know whether that's in any way plausible, whether there's any need to, dig into the budget for it. I don't think the city's going to want to take money out of the main budget with the challenges we've got. But the idea that there's cost recovery that in some way could be turned into even the teeniest, tiniest little incentive. People respond to ridiculously inequitable incentives. It's the funniest thing. You get your meal with a nickel in it, and you give $20 right away. It's like, okay, so that didn't really make rational sense, but it works.
I was going to say we don't have to dig into the budget, but I'm not sure what kind of appetite they would have if we considered like some sort of tax incentive reduction for like the folks who do recycle, and then we take that like incentive that we provide to them for like a 10% off for people who start or something. Some sort of balancing of that.
Right.
I see there's some paths.
I think so, and I don't think it has to be expensive. I don't think it would be able to be expensive.
I mean,
But
I just fear going down the path of pumping money into recycling when, in my personal opinion, we should be focusing on waste reduction. I don't know if incentivizing that aspect of things, but I know that, and I think any of this, we'd have to look at return on investment. Like, you do incentivize, like, what are you getting out of it on the other end? And what is the ultimate goal?
So
all
right
moving
now,
parts.
even with us, getting money back for scrap metal and aluminum and tin and a lot of those types of things, the cost for us to get all of our commodities to market is, I wanted to do the tune of about $50,000 a year is how much it costs us. A lot of that has to do just because it costs us, $100 and some odd dollars to recycle plastics per ton to recycle plastics. And at one point it was almost $100 a ton for us to get cardboard to market to. It's just based off of the market and demand, and there was not a lot of demand for cardboard, so we were having to pay people to take it basically. And so we would have to have an extremely large uptick in the amount of aluminum and that we were taking in order to pay for that program, one. And then the other thing to keep in mind is that our recycling budget for the city is half paid for by the city at $275,000, and it is half paid for by the county at $275,000. And so we would have to have a way of, if we were just doing a program that covered the city, we would have to have a way to segregate the city's waste from the county's waste in order to allocate things appropriately.
So it's both marginal issues and it's also economies of scale issues. It sounds like so. You're a big city. You got 6 million inhabitants. All of a sudden, there's some degree of reliability. But with 50,000 people, just think about that. Thank you.
And we, Emily can absolutely assess this. We in the city of Helena have really focused, what we took out of the strategic. Sorry, you brought up Jeremy Drake, so now I'm talking about the strategic plan for waste reduction. That's one of the big things that we took away from the strategic plan for waste reduction is that, that the hierarchy, reduce, reuse. And if we can do those first two at a really good rate, then it takes a lot of the pressure off of the recycle. And to reduce and reuse, it doesn't cost our citizens anything. It saves them, potentially, money and time from having to, recycle things and stuff like that. And so that's why we really started to look at those.
Feels like the hardest part though. Reduce.
Yeah, I'm thinking about like the financial considerations for life education campaign to get everyone in Helena to recognize that. That can't be like.
Can I tell a
My
story?
nature change.
I have a story. My area of study used to be called quantitative psychology, and one of the first most famous quantitative psychologists was a guy named Frank Stanton. And Frank Stanton, during the Depression, finished his dissertation, St. Louis, and his little box that he invented kept track of people's listening behavior. So it was how often, what time, how long, what time of day, and what station people were listening to on the radio. And he sold the patent for this little box to Casey Nielsen, which became the Nielsen ratings, right? And then he went to work as part of this new .com thing called television. He was the president of CBS for 35 years. And his effort in 1932, when he finished his dissertation, during the Depression, was to get people to go out and consume more stuff, right? And it was just consume, please, buy, we'll boost the economy this way. And it turned into this, what we now take for granted. You're saying, hey, we take for granted that we consume all this shit that we do. Pardon me, all the stuff that we consume that we don't really need at all. And I'm not trying to be a Puritan here, I'm really good about not consuming, but the idea that we are encouraged every day, all day, on our phones and our TVs and et cetera, billboards to go consume stuff is really a new thing. It really is only in the last less than 100 years. And we've got the same methods that we used to do that. We could turn them to get people not to do that, or just tune it down a little bit so there's less of it. And I don't have any quick answers to it, and I don't know if this group has some ways to do it, but it strikes me you've got some ideas. Well, I don't know. I mean, I think there are ethoses in different places that would listen to some of those ideas, and we could use psychology, quantitative methods, and it's not manipulative. It's just okay. Here's what people are listening to, and here's what we want them to do and not do.
I think we've discussed in the past like how other cities will have
events, usually through like the library where you can bring your stuff, have it fixed. I don't know if we have people in town who are good at fixing things, but we always ask the library. Interested in trying to work.
Usually it's a non-profit that makes it, right? Like Home Resource in Missoula. What's the sister store of that here out by like Buffalo Wild Wings? Restore. Maybe they could do something like that, or like Brazilian Elemental like partnerships.
So Restore does do that sort of. It's now becoming an annual thing, and it's what is it called? The Rebuild, but it's a competition. They do it once a year. But then also there are a lot of events that happen downtown. 10 Mile tried to do a fix-it workshop. They had one guy who came every time to fix stuff, and he was overwhelmed, and it did not last very long. And then like there are a lot of other programs, like there was a fashion show, and it was like a clothing swap, and everybody came down, and you could bring your clothes that were in good condition, and then it was like a thrift shop essentially in there, and then you picked the most, like, it was supposed to be the cutest outfit or whatever, and it turned into the most outrageous outfit. And there was a runway walk, and then at the end, everything got backed up, and we distributed it to various organizations around town. Things like that absolutely do happen, but they don't happen in this community as consistently as they could. And I think a part of that is people's willingness to buy in. I think it's also resources, or like, I think a fix-it workshop is amazing, and it's so fun. You see it in all these other communities, but you have to have the people who have the know-how to do it, and they also need to have the time and the buy-in to want to donate their time and their skill. But the library, I know that they do a lot of things on a smaller scale as well, fairly regularly.
Good partners. I have ideas for that issue.
Some of those things that another thing is it's in the strategic plan for waste reduction. You should read it.
I did the full zero waste implementation analysis.
Oh,
I've read it.
So one of the things that they identified that would potentially have benefits for the city or within the city of Helena is community garage sales. Working with neighborhoods to have their, for their neighborhood to have a garage sale. Sort of like if anybody ever goes to the Sunhaven garage sale, which I have on my calendar reserved every year. My family makes the best, but it's a great opportunity for everybody to have more people visit their garage sales than all the So one of the questions that came out of that is, what's the city's role in that? What can we do in that situation? We do have some education and outreach outlets that we can utilize for that, like the newsletter and stuff like that. But some of it's also just people working with their neighbors. The city can't, Emily can't go out and be like, these 4 blocks, you guys are doing your garage sales on these days. It takes a lot of buy-in, and you sure I can't. Give it a go. Let me know where to pick it up. But yeah, so but encouraging those types of things and the potential for us to work with neighborhoods that want to do that and have the bulky items truck available for those neighborhoods. That was actually where we really realized that the city could do something. Is we could allocate the bulky items truck for their neighborhood for that next work.
It reminds me of trying to do the block parties. We've tried to do block party kind of things, and it's a little restrictive as to what the city will do. And I don't know how much is buying wants to dig into that idea, but it ties in, I think, very closely to the decision and stuff.
I mean, we need to start a list of potential recommendations so that we can narrow from a list of potential recommendations, which is why I wanted to talk about waste this month.
When's the window on that? When do you have to have our recommendations? for this?
As soon as possible, because it takes us like forever to get them in a final form to send them out. So, I mean, we would like to get on, we would like to have a final thing ready to go in January to get on the commission's schedule, because that is always, is it gonna happen in January or is it gonna be March? So, so I mean, the end of the year would be fantastic, which is why we need to start thinking now. I mean, I think last year we went like 5 for 5, or 4 for 5. We went 4 for 5.
Looks
We
like
got
five.
4 of our recommendations in realized. So,
Which is
um,
huge.
and some of them I think were like pretty easy ones, like the glass crusher was pretty much going to be a winner. I'm pretty surprised with the vehicle as resistant as so it's been a grand design of this body for the city to have all electric vehicles for like several CCBs before, and the one that I came from, that was one of their big things, and they were just always told that it was completely out of the question, that there's no way that they could retool a whole fleet, but this is not tooling a whole fleet. This is just a little pilot program, but that's how things start, I think. So, but I'm still surprised at that one got the green light. And then our other recommendations were about some signage for the water conservation garden and
The
our other
loan-
one.
The loan program.
Oh, the loan program. Yeah, and the loan program's a winner, so that would be, and I think that the commission likes to hear from us that we value that program and we think that program should receive continued or additional support, because I think it makes it easy for them to justify providing that support then, because we've signed on to saying that we value that. So, so that being said, I think we as a body, as soon as we possibly can, need to work on a list of recommendations. I was scribbling some stuff down as we were talking related to our discussion here. And I don't know where we go from here necessarily. And that is kind of where we are in the agenda right now is communications and proposals for the next agenda. What we want to discuss, where we think we would like to go. I know we have some new members, so if there's anything, I mean, really it's an anything kind of discussion. We can start with the topic and have a discussion based on what our experience with the CCB or the city have been. If there's something that you're interested in discussing. So
I'll say I think one of the things that helped you guys last year was the fact that you guys thought about some costs that were associated with some of your guys' stuff. Sometimes the commission is they like an idea, but they don't voice one way or the other on it because they don't want to say yes, absolutely do it, and then they find out it's going to cost $7 million. And so, yeah, I think that was one of the areas that you guys were, one of the reasons you guys were successful last year is.
well, we were asking for specific things last year, and I think in the past we've asked for more broader categories or mandates rather than specific things related to sustainability.
And it's also this year versus 20 years kinds of questions too. So I think part of the reason we had success is because we asked you what you want and you need and what you think are the local hanging fruits. And you're the one, you guys are the people with the feet on the ground dealing with the actual issues. So I'll open that question up. You don't have to answer now again. But I think that worked for us pretty well too. And what are existing programs that are working? What are programs that you'd like to expand? What are programs that aren't working? You don't think that they're going to make it through. It could be really conceptual stuff too, which we haven't gotten into. That's one of the problems I remember from my days of service was, okay, so we've got this really concrete thing that we want to, we get the glass crusher. Okay, fine, it'll pay for itself. It's, yada, yada. But what about how we direct our thinking as a community? And Nathan and I were talking about this before the meeting, which is, okay, do we really want development to be really easy? So we can have the same kind of sprawl that they have in Kalispell and Gallatin County and stuff like that. So those kinds of directions about more conceptual things, creating incentives or not creating incentives, developing systems that are reducing use. Okay, a quick example. So we want to create house sales or neighborhood sales, yard sales. Let's make the code for getting that through, make that a little easier. So maybe that's something that I would propose we put on the list as just an example.
Say Betsy. Were you going to say something?
It'll come to you too.
I think it's good to take these small, like, digestible bits, because I think it's an easier win, it's more tangible, but I think it's also important to keep the end goal in mind. And I wonder just a little bit, like, what our end goals are. Yeah, I mean, we talked about it, and I feel like maybe previous CCDs would have the loftier goals, and maybe our goals are those loftier goals ultimately, but it's also thinking about, okay, we did the glass crusher, what's the next step? Or, we have the one EV, what's the next step in that process? Is that do we want to do like an incremental approach or do a bunch? And it's also beneficial to do a bunch of goals too.
I like the idea of identifying as a group ourselves those longer term issues. So we want to reduce versus recycle. For example, that's our primary priority principle, and the little things we do serve that rather than I'll just share. Okay, so my wife and I, before we retired, we had figured out our priorities for our health, our relationships, and our joy and exploration and discovery, right? In that order, right? And so our decision making revolves around those principles, just as you're describing. And I don't know if we want to go there with this group or not.
So, along the lines of what you were just talking about, would you guys like a list from us of the things that we are looking at pursuing for next year, or for the next year and the future? Because Emily and I are also looking. We have the next year plan, we have the 5-year plan, and then we have call it our rainbow plan. There's fluffy birds and unicorns, like, what we would get to do, in those situations. And so, if you guys want to know that from us, we absolutely can provide some of that too.
I mean, I think that would absolutely be helpful, and even in a format, and I don't know how guarded your information is, but like a format that we could actually look at before we get here, so that we can use our time here as wisely as we possibly can, so we're not all sitting here being right now. But
one of the things that we are looking at, and that we're looking at more in depth this next year, it goes along with our reducibles. A water bottle filling station at
A mobile
water mobile water bottle filling station for downtown, or not just downtown events, but holiday events, so that people are not single-use plastic water bottles and things like that. To reduce the use of a lot of those, and then if it's a habitual thing where people know that they have that available, they'll bring their water bottles.
How much does that cost? Is that like, are you doing a analysis of how much that costs versus just requiring no water bottles to be handed out single use?
So
Because you can skirt the legislature's like preemptive, like single use plastics that's been done in the cities previously, and there's places that are doing no water bottles. So, like, I'm curious if we're going to spend a lot of money going down this route when we could just say no water bottles.
so far, we're looking at each station costing us about $300. So pretty minimal. It just depends on DEQ's drinking water regulation. Some of it. So that's one of the things that, one of the hurdles that we're looking at this year is, what we have to do to comply with a lot of those.
And that the $300 mark is mostly if we're building it ourselves. There are also prefab ones that already exist in the world from a bunch of different companies. And there are some that they're pretty sweet. But
They mix in for interesting flavors.
And that's where, we're looking more at like, if you have these water bottle filling stations, then you can maybe start working towards that. Well, we have these filling stations, so why are you providing single-use plastics? And more of the,
it's more introductory.
yeah, and encouraging as opposed to restricting.
Can I ask something as like zoomed out just from the agenda thing about the next? Oh, sorry. No, you. I think.
Go ahead. I just don't know how much time we should spend on policy in the weeds right now. Like, I feel like that'd be good for next week, or sorry, next month. We all come back or find ideas, and that's to say I don't have a lot of details with what I'm going to say. I think it's really helpful to have these concrete, fundable programs that make financial sense for the city, and frankly, the commission should probably be doing anyway without a recommendation. But if it needs a push, that's a big role we're here to play. But also, new mayor, new commissioners. From what I understand from conversations that I've had with commissioner candidates, they want to be bold, they want to shake things up and make change. And I'm not saying this is CCP unchained again. This 50 recommendations, but yeah, we should also be creative and want to hear what you guys have to say, what your projects are too, but also we can talk about a protected bike lane. That's something that is a quick fix. Are these long-term goals that folks are talking about? So I just wanted to encourage that.
I think we take the time at the presentation to the commission to introduce what our long-term goals are. Okay, our long-term goals, maybe we do our rainbows and unicorns, and this is also what we think you might do.
And I think we did have that conversation last year too. I can't remember if our rainbows and unicorns were on it.
A combination, and
Yeah,
you could feed in, the higher
the electric vehicle was a rainbow.
Right, so my wife and I's first thing is health, so we go see the dentist, and it's has operational. But I really like that it's of a policy conversation.
Sorry.
No, I'm just saying, hey, cool. The idea of policy conversation that not empirically driven, but rather saying that here are our priorities that we think so we will reduce carbon footprint for the city as it grows. What does that mean? Compact growth means bike lanes, it means electric vehicles, and a long list of actual practices that we can change that are doable, the doable ones. And I'm coming at it both directions too, is what I'm trying to say. I agree with that.
And maybe we need a refresher on what our recommendations are allowed to
Yeah.
do. We can't recommend policy.
So
Right. But we
no,
can
so
have our,
you-
we can recommend
you
policy.
can recommend policy.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things to remember. So your presentation a few years, so basically it has to be short. If it doesn't have the appearance that's going to be between 5 and 10 minutes, it's going to take longer for it to make it onto an agenda. So if you have your overarching, have your overarching, and I think this is what ended up making it into the presentation before last, is your overarching goal, and it stated, you know, the CCB's overarching goal is to make Helena more walkable. And then they took from that, yep. And they took from that, and their recommendation was for the commission to deny sidewalk variances. And so as a policy to deny sidewalk variances. And that one actually did get a little bit of traction right after that. The approval or denial of sidewalk variances moved from the commission to the city manager. And appeals are at the commission level, but the commission did give the city manager the overarching
Make the decisions.
make the decisions, but if possible, please, you know,
No variances.
no, yeah, limited variance. So that was a positive. So if you have your overarching goal in there, and then have what specifically you want from it, just make sure that you don't do the overarching goals. And these are all the ways that you can get there, because that's what was in the 35 slide
Right.
presentation from a few years ago that didn't.
What I'm suggesting is if you look at describing and say, okay, we've got a rationale here, and we're presenting here are these 5 items, and here's why we are presenting them, here are the priorities, the rationale that are underlying, and we try to make it realistic so we get support. I mean, it's politics. We're trying to get the support of commissioners, and I know we have a commissioner who's totally all about sidewalks and wants them everywhere. And I worked with one of those back in Springfield, Missouri, 25 years ago. You know, and that's great, but operationally, it's still going to spend a whole bunch of time trying to figure out how to make that happen. And so finding ways that actually we know we're likely to work, but having good rationale as a basis for it, I think makes a lot of sense. Is that sensible? Is that?
I was wondering if is there any way to get our hands on like slides or information from the board member training they do on government or municipal government, like how it works and things like that?
Yeah.
Because I haven't been able to attend one of those yet. So I feel like that might help people.
Yeah, I actually think they're available online.
They are.
Yeah, and if you would distribute that, and then I want to see your guys' previous presentations to the commission are also online on your guys' webpage.
Maybe, or I could send them to you. I mean, last year's, the years before. Another place to start if people are interested in. I mean, it's very, very old, but the first CCB was very involved in the only existing climate action plan for the city, and that is on the website for the CCB. You can get to that climate action plan. So if you wanted to see some big picture ideas, and along the lines, we did draft several almost like an annual report or an annual review that were also very big picture ideas. The difficulty with all that is it ran into that here are 50 ways you can take care of this, and the commission only really wanted to hear 5, and 5 specific things, and so there's always that synergy that's there, that you have a lot of rationale and big picture ideas, and the commission's operating on next year's budget for one set of priorities, one set of things. So I think we were really successful last year because we were really focused. And so I don't think that in the time that we have to present to them that we can really even delve into any of the rationale, because that's not what they're looking for. I think we can certainly put a document together and we can deliver it to them, and they can choose to read it or not to read it. That's certainly something that we can do. But when it comes right down to those recommendations, and the reason that this board is formed, we're formed to provide them with feedback I mean, the CPACE would be a perfect example of that. They were interested in adopting it. They wanted feedback from citizens. We're the citizens who are providing the feedback. And so that part of our mandate is to monitor what the city is doing as far as sustainability and report to them what we think of those efforts are in the form of recommendations.
Are we reactively responding to their plans, or are we proactively responding to their plans so that it's in
So-
place?
So I think it could be both.
But I think
Historically, how has it been?
having a rationale makes it so we can be a little more proactive. And I'm supposing, as I think this over, if we're talking about it, that we have a potential decision we can make if we've got our own internal rationale that we kind of rely upon, touchstones to help us make decisions.
So I think we can be proactive as long as we're specific. I think that is, if we're proactive and we are broad, I don't think that that goes anywhere, because it's not giving them specific actions that they can take vis-a-vis the next year's city budget. And so if we're specific and proactive, if we're reactive, that can take any form. I think in the past we've attempted to be proactive in the sense that their visions for how they felt the city should be the climate action plan, but they
I
weren't
guess-
specific.
In my head, a good example is the solid waste integration plan, where we're kind of running through this. What is the process and how is it going to be implemented afterwards? When in my head, it feels like we could have had a proactive approach and been given a recommendation on the plan had it been brought to us previously, and then provide that to the commissioners.
So
From there, and similar, like-
yeah, we did have input into that planning process before that plan was written. We had the former CCB member, I think, Richard.
No, on this current CCP, but Dick Sloan, and then
Yeah.
Betsy actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty late in the process.
Pretty
Yeah,
late in the process because the CCB flipped over. We had some members that had term. So they were on that steering committee, so we did have input into that. I would imagine if there were something similar, we would have the opportunity to at least have somebody in the room.
I guess now I'm thinking like the NPO is going through, the joint infrastructure plan's going through process. There's probably a few others that are going through. Like, are we catching any of these, or are we like kind of after the fact seeing these go through? That's kind of like what I'm.
Can I throw in a question here, and I think it helps answer that question. To what extent did the previous CCB contextualize? So let me give you an example. The transportation issues that we face, I'm thinking back to your question about bike lanes. There are two at-grade crossings with BNSF here in town on major thoroughfares. To fix one of those, hugely unsafe, hugely dangerous, enormous problems for traffic flow. To fix one of those is at least tens of millions of dollars. So the traffic folks are looking at these, that they've been talking about at town commission for at least a decade that I'm aware of, right? So, okay, we want to get those bike lanes put in, and certainly reducing our carbon footprint is not going to happen if we make it easier for people to dash through the railroad crossings. But safety is a higher priority in a lot of people's minds than our carbon for longer term carbon footprint, right? So when we talk about trying to get things in the budget, the specifics that you're talking about, we have to contextualize our ideas and rely upon those rationale. We can't. I don't want us to abandon our rationale or our unicorns and rainbows ideals at all. I think those are essential for a decision making. But when we choose this, that's what Emily and we are doing all the time. So they're having to quickly decide which do we prioritize here under our existing rationale, under our existing ideas. And so I don't know if that's true or not. My question is, was any of this contextualized when the CCB was doing this before? Were they contextualizing at all?
I would say some of it was.
Yeah.
Except, so I'm gonna read you guys section 8 of your guys' resolution that created you really fast. This board will fulfill its obligations to recommend and monitor sustainability measures undertaken by the city of Helena by issuing to the Helena City Commission goals and objectives for Helena sustainability measures, by issuing to the City Commission a report in January of each year. So if you guys have your presentation approved and blessed and ready to go in December, it's more likely to make it in the January one. The report will include the state of current sustainability measures undertaken by the city of Helena and will identify 3 to 5 specific sustainability measures for the city commission to review and provide guidance to the city manager on as priorities for the coming ANA. The sustainability measures identified by the board must include current sustainability measures if the board recommends continuation of such measures for consideration by the city commission and to be vetted by city staff at the direction of the city manager. So just to kind of bring you guys,
Shut down.
that, that's what,
Those unicorns.
but it is good to have those conceptuals and then say,
And
What's up, Betsy?
So I was
Time to go.
full of ignorance that, but I think what Tyler might be referring to is what we were talking about earlier today is that there are these other plans within the city that touch on sustainability measures. And sorry if you were already talking about this, but like, does it ever make sense for us to weigh in as a citizens body on when there is sort of this public participation aspect? Like, could we, if not, and maybe this is edging on advocacy, but like write a letter that or writing a letter from us to the commission that we, sort of like we did with the CPACE, we recommend that you support.
I
I
think
would say only if you're asked to by the commission.
Yeah, no, I think we could question the commission or ask the commission. I think what we would absolutely positively avoid doing is as a group just that's what freaked everybody out before was as a group advocating for one thing or another as a group.
I don't see it as advocacy, and I think that the issue I'm having is that the process flow feels like we're kind of just, hey, do this annual report, which is good, and I think, but if we're having these plans that have sustainability, that we just give a recommended, like, hey, we have this joint infrastructure plan that's going through, and there's the solid waste integrated plan that is involved in some sort of process thing. If they're not catching that, that should be kind of a moment for us to be like, hey, we have this sustainability goal and it's included in this and this, and we recommend that you take a look at this. If we're missing that, then they're implementing a plan without catching the 4 different other moving parts, and we're never going to get to a sustainable point if we're trying to capture these after the fact versus preemptively if we know there's a joint infrastructure plan going through, just having a soft review by our board and a recommendation of that plan to commissioners to take and do whatever they want with. They could say nothing, but like
Unfortunately,
the other
we have a
committees.
limited scope as the board.
Yeah, so you as an individual can do that, can, approach the commissioners and say, some of that kind of stuff.
It's only a recommendation. I mean, the other committees across the other cities do the same thing, and they make a recommendation.
Right, but our charter says we have 3 to 5 specific recommendations that we can make,
Yeah.
and that's all we do.
A recommendation could be that we have a process flow of potentially reviewing plans to provide the sustainability lens that our board is supposed to provide to commissioners.
Yes and no. So, based off of how your guys' resolution is written now, it's less of your board's job and purview to go out and find these things, and more of, so like you guys have the opportunity to propose things and weigh in on things on an annual basis, unless otherwise asked by the commission. So you guys were requested to weigh in on, you guys weighed in on CPACE because you guys were requested by the commission to advise them on CPACE. That's kind of where the commission has really gotten to, just because they did have boards kind of, we're one of 36 boards. we're one of 36 boards, and so if each board is out there doing all of these autonomous things, then it's a lot. Commissioners are already getting a very large amount of information and communication.
So part of the way what I hear you saying, part is we're trying to establish a relationship with the commission. And the idea that we're providing, this last time was a big success because our relationship with them was kind of a restart with Jason and leadership role and so on. And some memory, some notion, it's all your fault. You just give it up. Anyway, but the idea that we were establishing that relationship in a way that they could trust us and they would hand us CPACE and say, hey, have a look at this. So that we get to be more proactive as we become a trusted source. So I think that's part of the process, the political part of the process that you're describing. I love that you're coming at it from a process.
Yeah, I think it's hard to imagine where Helena goes sustainability wise when we don't have leadership like top down, an individual like leading the charge. We kind of have this spread out city commission.
We're a democracy.
And then we don't really have a bottom up advocacy push or like from the citizens to like push things too. So where does sustainability go when there's nowhere on either end?
Well, we're a democracy. This organization is a democracy.
Yeah, I think that's the challenge of this particular
Yes,
community
it's-
versus other larger communities, which also could quite possibly have more resources for sustainability than we currently have. I mean, I think this program started from nothing. And so here's where it's at now. But that's a good question. I mean, where could it go, or where could it go if the model was changed? But I'm not sure that is our role to go that route. So I don't want us to drag us on too long in this. So I want to make sure we have some ideas for what we want to or where we're going to go next time, so that we have that kind of focused on.
Do we want to compile a list, or everyone email lists and compile ideas?
I mean, that
next week?
that would be so.
Be careful with the emailing everybody.
So
Sure.
Open meeting laws.
the way that this could work is everybody could compile their ideas and send them to me individually, and then I could BCC out to everybody, just like I do agendas, so that we're not having dialogue, like cross dialogue. We're not having a discussion, basically. I don't think we're violating anything if I collect a list of recommendations or a list of ideas that people have, compile it, and then share it. In as much as I'd love to hear from you guys and get that out to us next month, so that we have some material in front of us as well, to kind of form the basis for a discussion. I'm also open if people's list includes, hey, here's like 3 big ideas that we should look at, or here's three areas that we should develop rationale from. I'm open to that idea too, as being part of the discussion. But it would be helpful if we could all have something to review before we get in here, so that we can use our time in here as wisely as possible. So, and I've written down some of the ideas that we kicked around tonight, but certainly, and we'll include those. But yeah, absolutely, I think that'd be great to have.
So what is it again? We have the stuff that you guys are going to bring for sustainability. What like you guys want or is going well.
Yep. Just
And then
Yeah.
and then we have what the CCB has done before. Is that also what we're like getting some background on?
So I can send out some documents, and I'll send you guys just if you're not, just because people aren't aware of our last couple recommendations that we sent directly to the commission, so that you can get an idea or get a feel of what that format looks like and what that looks like. And certainly the last CCB, because we met for most of the time and had meetings, we had like annual documents and steering documents and things like that. So I have all of that stuff. So I'll send what I have of that material for you to review. Go with your ideas from there. What's that?
I would love to be included on that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I can send some of it's already on the city site, but some of it I know that I have a whole CCB file that's got documents dating back. I mean, will be 3 years in January, so back to like 22, I think, probably. From CCBs. Anything else? Other proposals, communications? So calendars, you say the 9th of October? Yeah, October 9th, back for another meeting. Any members of the public to make
I'm gonna vote for Jason for president.
commentary? Public communications. All right, get a motion to adjourn.
Something like
All right, second. All right, all in favor? All right. Time then.
that.